right. The time is 6:30 and a quorum being present, I call this meeting to order. First items on the agenda is the approval of minutes for 2/4/2026 and 2/18/2026. Is there any discussion about those ones? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve those minutes. Seems pretty
I'll
straightforward.
make a motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. The first order of business is a request for a certificate of compliance. They have asked to continue to the 2/18/2026 meeting. I'm sorry, they've continued from the 2/18/26 meeting. They want to appear at the next meeting on 3/18/2026. Could I have a motion to continue to that meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. All right. Second business is a public hearing, a notice of intent and land disturbance for Andrew Cole, K137/L138E/337 transmission line, assessors map, various right-of-ways, DEP file number 305-11 I'm sorry, I'm going to start that over. DEP file number 305-1226. Is there anybody here for that? Could you please come up and introduce yourself for the record, and then the floor is yours. You can come to this table.
Good evening. Does that work? You can hear me?
Yep.
Okay. My name's Allison Milliman. I'm with BSC Group. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, New England Power Company, to present a land disturbance permit application as well as a notice of intent for upcoming transmission line work.
Sorry, but I can't hear.
The sound system in here is limited, so you're going to have to just really sit close. I asked that you pull that microphone up real close, and I think that might be the best we can do. I apologize for, any lack of disturbance, I guess. But
I'll try to talk louder.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. The work is proposed to replace existing transmission lines along the right-of-way. There's two applications, as I mentioned. One's for the land disturbance permit under Chapter 9, I believe, and the other is for a notice of intent, and that's for the impacts proposed to wetlands, buffer zones within the project area. We're also asking for a variance from the no disturb zones outlined in your local bylaw. As far as the land disturbance permit application, I'll start with that, if that's okay. Okay. We're looking at approximately 8.27 acres of land disturbance. A large majority of that work is associated with upgrades to the existing access road network along the transmission line, as well as constructing work pads for the large equipment that needs to come in to install the overhead towers. They typically need to bring in concrete trucks, large cranes, large drilling rig equipment in order to install the replacement structures. So that's why we have such a large amount of grading proposed. Each graded area will be topped with crushed gravel. We have a civil design that was done in a stormwater report that was included in the land disturbance application for the commission's review. But for the most part, this work does not have civil design associated with it, because it's mostly just using existing material on the right-of-way to create a level surface for that equipment to be able to get in and set up safely for the overhead work. So that's the scope of that work. The associated mapping was included in the application, as well as our proposed sediment control measure lines that are on the plan. We also talked about, restoration of disturbed areas. So all areas will be seeded. Any disturbed exposed soil will be seeded with a conservation seed mix. Those areas that are gravel will remain gravel, but typically those areas do become revegetated over time just from natural processes. And that's honestly why a lot of times when they come in to do this work, after a couple decades, they have to redo the work because vegetation just takes over. We aren't proposing any grubbing. There's no tree clearing associated with this work. The only vegetation removal will be mowing within the existing maintained right-of-way in order to allow for the equipment to get access to each structural location. Are there any questions for me on the land disturbance application?
So what did you say the total area is?
8.27 acres.
8.27 acres. But my understanding from what you just said, from what's in the permit, it's all existing roads, not paved roads, but just, rough roads throughout this area that you're redoing, essentially. Is that?
Yes, that's a correct statement. Yep. At varying levels of improvements. Some roads, if they're in decent shape and they don't need to be widened or really improved immensely, like they would just be top the fresh gravel. Then the next stage of road is where they've basically become cart paths at this point in time. So they could be like 2-track roads, or the vegetation has encroached in from the sides, so they're too narrow for the equipment. And then for those roads, they'll be widening the existing road base on either side and installing gravel on the entire length of those access roads. And then where there's no discernible stone left, or, there's no permanent, firm substrate for the equipment. That's basically what we consider to be, at this point, a new road, so they'll have to come in and grade out. They'll remove any organics that have accumulated on those access ways. They'll scrape up the organics, and then they'll usually lay fabric down, and then they'll put the stone on top of that, and they'll roll it to make sure that the equipment can come in and do the work.
How wide are these roads?
Typically, it's a 12-foot travel way. We permit for 16 feet to allow for any side slopes and shoulders.
All right. Any other questions or comments from the commission? If you want to. Sir, this is a public hearing. You'll have time to get up and make a comment, but right now we're kind of just the commission having a discussion, but you will have time to ask anything. All right, if you want to continue.
Sure. I'll continue into the notice of intent application that we've provided to you. This notice of intent accounts for impacts to wetlands and buffer zones associated with the transmission line replacement work. Due to the increase, a lot of the structures out there, I'll start here. A lot of the structures out there are wood structures, or they're the steel lattice structures, which are kind of obsolete at this point. The company prefers to come in, especially on that 345 kV line, which is referred to as a 337 line in our application. It's a higher voltage line. It requires more strength. They will be installing steel towers on concrete caisson foundations in order to basically make it this more reliable asset. This is all asset condition-driven work on these lines. So there is some permanent impact associated with the replacement of these structures because they are going larger. So you'll see on the Wetlands Protection Act form, we did account for our permanent fill within BVW. We're proposing a 3-to-1 replication for that permanent fill, and we do have a replication plan. And it's in the vicinity of the that substation complex off Power Company Road that I believe the commission has reviewed and approved other recent replication areas for the company in the past. So we're going to be building off of those existing replication areas to offset the permanent fill associated with the enlarged structure bases. There's no riverfront impacts associated with this work that we filed in our NOI, so I don't need to get into that. But the rest of the impacts are, direct wetland impacts are associated with temporary construction matting. Those aren't necessarily subject to the Wetlands Protection Act, but we did provide the acreage or the square footage in our application for the commission's review. That will be permitted under an individual 401 water quality cert with Mass DEP for our temporary fill. But we should be submitting that in the next couple of weeks. We've met with the DEP to discuss the filing, and we've had our pre-file. They're aware that we're going to be filing relatively soon.
What was that called, the file that you're submitting? It's just a state,
Yeah, it's a 401 water quality certification.
All right.
Yep. And it's with the DEP.
But yeah, that's DEP.
Yes, but they permit the temporary impacts associated with the wetland mats. I guess that's where I'm getting with that. So that's where the duality of the coverage. So we're not asking for permission for the temporary construction because they are considered exempt under the Wetlands Protection Act. That's where I'm going.
Did you mention when this construction was going to start?
Sure, I can talk about that. So there's a two-phase construction approach they're looking into. The first phase is going to start this fall, and that would be just what we're talking about here with the land disturbance work. They want to have a contractor come in and start improving access ways and work pads, improving roads ahead of the actual transmission line work. And then next year, they'll be starting the transmission line work. Now, this project does span 6 different towns. It's a long linear project. So they will be working, they'll probably be in your town of Tewksbury intermittently because they do typically work in a linear fashion. And usually how this construction works is that they'll first come in after they've done some of this pre-work, this pre-civil prep work. They'll come in and do additional mowing if needed after the growing season next year. Then they'll come in and do any additional civil work that's needed or that wasn't, separated out as this early work scope for this fall. Then behind the civil crews, we usually have a drilling crew come in, and they actually create the holes for where the poles are going to be installed into the ground. And they'll also pour concrete if they're concrete foundation poles. They'll set the bolts in the concrete, and they'll set everything up for the line crews. Then after they're out of the area, then the linemen come in, and they bring the poles with them, and they set the poles up on the bases. Then they typically move on, and then they come back once enough poles are installed in a certain span, and they'll do the overhead work, which means they'll transfer wires from the existing poles onto the new poles. And then they pull the wires through so that, and then after that, they'll come back and they'll take out all the old structures, and they'll be removing all those pieces from the right-of-way. Then after that, we'll have the civil crew come back, and they'll do the restoration work. And that would include any seeding, regrading that's needed, basically to put things back into a stable condition on the right-of-way. BSC will be on site as an environmental monitor and a compliance inspector for all aspects of this project. The project does require an EPA NIPD SWIP. So that automatically mandates that we have all sites inspected at least once a week and after a quarter inch of rain or more. And depending on the circumstances, we might be out there more frequently if they're doing some work in sensitive resource areas, such as in wetland work, on temporary construction mats, they're pouring concrete. We may be out there more often just to make sure that everything's done in compliance with our conditions and our permits.
So you mentioned it's a multi-phase project. Constructing the towers is one thing. So they're all going in roughly the same area as the existing towers, but then you're going to remove those. I say towers, they're poles, but getting rid of the wooden poles, making bigger, stronger steel poles it's almost the exact same project as we heard like 2 meetings ago for National Grid, but other, not BSC Group, somebody else.
Yes,
But
yeah.
the
company is doing system-wide upgrades to their assets, basically because, majority of them are aging at this point from when they were originally constructed, and they need to make sure that they're resilient, they're not falling down.
But there'll be concrete pads. My understanding from that previous meeting, the poles are constructed in a way that, wildlife and other small humans couldn't go up and climb them. They're safe. There's not a ladder directly from the ground. You have to have a bucket truck or something to actually get on top, to climb these things.
Yes, but they also put the danger sign, there's also signage on the structures for the pub, in case there's public activity.
I don't think we get much public activity, but, you never know who's walking around there and stuff. Any other questions or comments from the commission?
Reliability with the grid.
All right, if there's no more discussion right now, before I open up to the public, I am going to read some conditions. So, conditions to accompany the order of conditions issued for DEP file number 305-1226. From when construction first commences and until construction completion, a minimum of monthly status reports shall be submitted to the conservation agent, which summarizes pertinent site information such as construction progress and maintenance of erosion and sediment controls. Prior to any construction activity commencing, the following must be completed. ESCs shall be installed by the applicant or an agent of the applicant, and the conservation agent shall inspect and approve of the installed ESCs. Coordinate with the conservation agent prior to construction first commencing, and if there is any permanent wetland impact, the applicant must construct a wetland replication. This is to be constructed and monitored for 2 years. The applicant shall work closely with the Conservation Commission agent at the time of the wetland replication to assess the final replication location. I think that first one is actually more lax than what you, like you said you have to submit weekly plans, I believe?
Right, well, under the EPA and NIPD's requirements, we have to inspect and prepare a report once every week, and then after a quarter of an inch of rain. We don't have to submit those directly to the EPA, but we do have to, I circulate them to the project team and the contractors, obviously, so they're aware of the action items if there are any. But we have to keep them on file in case we are requested by EPA to provide those. But I have no concerns with providing monthly reports to the commission.
I would imagine it's almost the exact same information, so it could be.
Yes.
Yeah. And you're okay with all the other proposed conditions?
Yes. The one thing I will say that sometimes it can be burdensome on the agent because of the linear nature of the project that they, sometimes they'll want to put their BMPs in, start work in one section, then they'll put their BMPs in and then move. So it could be multiple site visits. If that's problematic, sometimes I've been able to take pictures of the sediment controls, installed as is. And that's an option too. We could look at, if it's hard to get out into the field like all the time.
Yeah. Are you okay? I was just thinking maybe the first instance, don't, inspect them after, at the first instance, but then as they go, maybe it doesn't have to be before or something like that, but, I'd defer to you, of course.
I can go out as many times as we're good.
Perfect. All right. With that, I will open up to the public. Anybody in the public who would like to make a comment, I ask that you go up to the podium and introduce yourself for the record.
I'd like to let the commission know too, there are 2 other representatives from the project team here tonight. They're representing the community engagement team. So if there's any questions that I'm not able to respond to, I'll defer to.
All right, and if there's any questions that you guys want to answer, I just ask that you come up and introduce yourselves, but until that happens, I'm not going to worry too much about it. All right, can you?
Hi, Karen Vines, I live on Briarwood Road. Question for you, how big are the concrete pads for the poles?
They vary in size. I think they're outlined in the application, but they typically range from 6-foot diameter to 10-foot diameter. Some of them are 12-foot diameter, and then we have micro piles, which are much smaller, and they're 6 square feet total. The micro piles are more like a pier.
Okay, so there's a pad and then a pier?
It depends on the structure type, so it depends on the soils and the engineering. So we have some micro piles that are going in what they call problem soils.
Okay.
Soils that maybe aren't as structurally capable, so that they're going to be drilling actual piers into the ground, and then the base is elevated over the soil.
Okay.
So they'll be like more of a pier.
How tall are those if required?
The piers?
Yeah.
I'm not sure about how tall they are.
Okay.
But they are, I know they said that they'll be elevated above the ground, the pole will be mounted on the piers.
Okay, but you don't know how tall they are?
Nope, I focus more on how they're impacting the actual wetland in the soil, not the,
Okay.
yeah.
What are the requirements for reseeding an area? When would you do that?
During the restoration process.
No, what needs to be met? When do you decide to reseed an area?
Any area that's disturbed will be stabilized with seed mix.
So anything that's just dirt gets seed on it?
If it needs to be amended with a topsoil or organics in order to facilitate vegetation growth, because if they've graded it and it's now subsoil, they will have to either stockpile their topsoil, strip it and stockpile it and use that to cover the area so that it will sustain vegetation growth, or they'll have to bring in, a clean topsoil from a facility in order to restore.
But that's anything that's just dirt because it's been graded and doesn't have gravel, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then you said crushed gravel. I've seen crushed gravel under the power lines before, and it's more like small stones. You can't really walk on it. What size is the crushed gravel being used on the access roads?
They typically go with like a 3-inch minus mix.
Okay, so the 3-inch mix is very difficult to walk on, if that's what I'm thinking of. Not good. I mean, as a resident, we walk under the power lines occasionally and cannot walk on that stone. So just something to think of. That was all my questions. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Good evening. Ed Johnson, 44 McNeil Way. I have one of the poles in my yard. I've been living there for 40 years and unfortunately dealing with New England Power. The issue I have is they don't always do what they say. They're going to come here and tell you what you want to hear, but they're not going to do it. In 40 years, I've never seen a hay bale there in my area. They put them in other areas, but I've never seen any in my area. And when they say they're going to, manage the vegetation, well, all they do is they bring in a bobcat, they mow it down, and they leave it there. So when we know what it is, then it's slash, and it's a fire hazard. And they leave it there until it rots. They do not clean it up. They do not grade. I had to do all the grading myself. And now, unfortunately, they made a deal with me because I had some trees along my driveway. I have a common driveway there. And they said, we'll take the trees down, we'll put some arborvitaes there. Those are going to be gone. Will those be replaced?
I'm not familiar with the trees, sir. I'm sorry.
Well, there's some arborvitaes that the power company gave me as a trade-off for some trees they took down.
Okay.
Now and it shows on your map that you're just going to mow them down.
This is McNeil Way.
Hi, everyone. My name is Stephen Graham. I represent the engagement team for National Grid.
Thank you.
So when we have deals with, trees that are usually put in right-of-ways,
Excuse me, can you pull that mic closer?
sorry about that.
Here, back there. Thank you.
We have multiple ways of dealing with that, and I deal with butters one-on-one when we deal with situations like this. But if there's an arborvitae in a way that, is getting taken down, it sounds like it was put originally in there by National Grid.
They did put them there.
Usually if there was a signed deal between that of saying like, hey, this is completely what you take care of from here on out, like we install the tree and then you handle the maintenance of the tree, or it's a situation of like, it's a replacement. So this could be a situation of replacement. I have not seen the actual, the grounds of at this place. But I would go out there. I would say, okay, we're getting rid of these trees. What do they serve the purpose? Is it a mitigation of visual? Is it something that is it like a trade-off, like a situation that you would say like, hey, they're taking these down, so in another year we'll put another like another latch of trees up? So that could be also the situation that it's normally handled and how I deal with my projects. But in this situation, we would have no problem going and doing a site visit and doing an assessment of what the situation of that is. I don't make the final says for that. That's usually that is the project manager. I'm the one that goes out and assesses the situation, takes pre-vegetation photos, see that, and when we finish a project, like we were saying, we do the vegetation afterwards. We go back out there and make sure it's up to the same standards that they were before. So in this, I am for the engagement team. I will see this project from the start of it, where we go out and do the letters and notifications to the community. But also when I go out and do that, I'm going into meeting with the butters, taking photos of the vegetations, questions like these that are asked of, like, are we getting rid of trees? And then I'll take photos of that and come back, let the project team know, get that approved, come back in a year, and we install a new set of trees.
Could you please give that gentleman your contact information?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I have it.
believe you have my contact information. My
I
colleague,
was
Matt
just
Watkins.
about to say that, like, I don't know, I know you said your address, but I don't know where that is and whether it's actually in the wetlands, so we're kind
No,
of
it's-
limited to,
It's near the wetlands.
yeah, and so, but it's still like, I can't make any promises to you at this point about something like that without having the information, but I encourage you to
I understand that.
continue speaking with the.
What I'm trying to do is inform the board of what they do. And they don't always follow through with what I mean, they have great intentions, and they probably would do, these people, will honor what they say, but they may not be there by the end of the project. I've seen so many projects, and by the end of the project, the same people aren't there.
And I appreciate
And not
that.
to bore you with other stories, I mean, this is what I've been dealing with for 40 years there. They'll come down there in the wetlands, and they said, oh, you have these trees, we got to cut them down, we're going to give you some Russian olives. Oh, okay, that sounds great. They come the next year and spray them and kill them. They recently, the forestry division is good too, they'll try and work with you. But they came down and they said, we're going to give some arborvitaes and, to block, because we got to take a couple of trees down. They just did this recently last year. So they planted them. Direct burial in the water. You know how long they lasted? 2 months. I mean, that's the kind of things that I'm concerned about. I mean, I think, and it's the board's decision, naturally, I see other communities have done it, and I guess it's allowed. It's a performance bond. I don't understand why they can't put up a performance bond to make sure that the work gets done that they're doing. I have some other concerns too. On there, she was nice enough to email me a copy of them on McNeil Way. On McNeil Way, on the right-of-way, it shows 5, on their plan, it shows 5 lines. And it shows that they're going to replace them, replace the footings in one of the lines that's not there. They took it down about 5 or 6 months ago. I'm not sure if they filed with you to take it down, but at that time, they had no problem with the access roads. They've got big cranes, and now they want to make them 16 feet wide. I don't know, if you can't drive a cement truck down 38, which isn't 16 feet wide on one side. I mean, the 16 feet is a wide road. The only thing they're going to create, that's another thing, they'll put up a gate for you. And then when they send something, when somebody comes out, not them, New England Power, when somebody comes out, they don't have the key, they cut the gate off and just leave it on the ground. And as far as cleaning up after themselves, I've told them on the phone, about 20 years ago, they replaced 2 of the poles that they're going to replace again. Guess where the poles are? Still in my yard. 20 years later, 3 of them. So, I mean, I don't know. They say they're going to clean up. I know it wasn't them, because they don't look like they're old enough. But they don't do what they're going to say. And the new line, if there's a new line going in, I'd like to know. Does anybody know here? So you, Mr. Chairman, if there's a new line going in?
This is just the replacement of existing.
No, they're gone. All the existing is gone.
May I? Okay. The gentleman's referring to the J1622 line, which was a transmission line that recently is starting to be dismantled. It's been out of service for a period of time. I had submitted a maintenance notification letter to your commission for the work because it's an exempt utility maintenance activity, because all it was removing overhead lines and taking down poles. So the scope of work we're discussing is very different here. They're not bringing in new large steel structures. Like, they didn't have to do that for the removal activities on the J162 line. And they didn't have to do any concrete work or anything like that. It was just a removal. The entire J162 line has not been removed at this time. Just portions of it were removed, and I know portions of them in your town were removed.
But that's not correct.
Well, sir.
Watch them bring in those mats to take it out of there.
Sir,
So-
I understand, appreciate your concerns about this. We can only hear what they've actually submitted. So I understand you've had bad experience.
But it's your jurisdiction to make sure that they don't work without submitting something to you, and that's what they did. I'm just trying to show you
Yeah.
that they don't do what they're going to say all the time.
And that's why we have a conservation agent that goes out there and inspects everything. And if you find something that isn't what you expected, isn't what they've, asked us to permit, I ask that you contact us about that.
I didn't hear-
That's as far as we can really go. We can't just not hear somebody because
Sorry, but I didn't hear her. They got to put a new line in? Is that what she said?
That scope of work was just to remove a line that's no longer in service.
They're going to put one in?
No, that work was just to remove a line that's no longer in service.
Yeah, so they're not going to replace it.
I can't speak to what they'll do in the future, but we're here today just to talk about these 3 lines
No.
that are,
I understand, but you submitted a plan showing new structures at those
no,
locations.
those are existing
that
structures,
have
sir.
been removed.
Those were showing existing structures, and the entire line has not been removed as of yet in all areas. So they went in this summer.
Yeah, in Bill Ricker, in Tewksbury, in my area, the whole thing's been gone. I've watched them do it. They had dumpsters there, they had cranes, they had excavators on the little road, wasn't 16 feet wide.
I understand.
I mean, 'cause the reason I'm bringing all this up is it relates to wetlands in that every year I get more and more water. I'm getting inundated with their construction practices. They say in their paper that their attorneys say that on stormwater runoff is not an issue, or they're exempt. That's not true at all. I mean, just ask the town of Amesbury to fine them $15,000 for storm runoff. I mean, they should just be, why I'm here is, I can't stop them. They have an easement. What I'm here for is to make sure that they do what they're going to say they're going to do. I mean, and the other thing I'd like to bring up, Mr. Chairman, you might know this, is the land disturbance public hearing notice that I received. It doesn't make reference to any maps, any lots. If I was to appeal this, how am I going to do that?
I don't know the exact method of appealing. Typically, these are, through the DEP. If Abigail can
Can
speak.
send you all applicable information. It's available on our website, but if you have a hard time getting to it, I can absolutely do that.
I spoke to an attorney today, and he says, you're not going to be able to appeal it if the public notice is not correct. I mean, this land, some of it's owned by them, some of it's owned by other people. I own a piece. It's not, they're just treating it like it's 8 acres. It's not 8 acres, it's other people's land. It's all broken up. So if I want to appeal just on my land, how do I do that?
Again, I don't know the exact method besides I know it goes to DEP and Abigail can send you the information
I think it
about
might
how
be
to appeal
worth
it.
checking with town council to see if the notices are correct that are going out, to make sure that the people, but anyway. I mean, I'd like to see some type of a performance bond or something put on them so that they can, so that they'll do what they say they're going to do. All right, that's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
live on Randolph Drive off of North Street, and
I'm sorry, can you just say your name for the record?
my name is Jean Dango,
Thank you.
and I live on Randolph Drive off of North Street. Is this going to affect the properties up there? The work that's being done, is it going to involve North Street?
It's hard to say exactly how it would affect it. They're looking, I think, for your general area to see.
You said you're off of North Street, ma'am?
Yes,
Elevator.
Randolph Drive. It abuts the lines there.
I don't know if it's on the view of our map. Looked like it was near the highway.
Yes, off of 495 Radcliffe.
Did you receive a butter notification?
I did. It's a legal notice for the public hearing for tonight for the land disturbance and notice of intent.
And by the way, just as engagement, we do mapping reviews, so I can look into, following this meeting, looking into her location and, providing more of an understanding.
I would appreciate that, and if you can.
I'd be
also
glad to
extend-
share my contact
Yeah,
information,
thank you.
and we do like a walkthrough of even of where the easement is in relation to the work, where the entrances are, the trucks coming down the road. I can provide all those information to any abutter that goes on with that. So.
Will there be more than one work pad? I'm not even sure. This was off of Whipple Road that you're talking about now, previously?
I'm not talking about any particular road. I just say I'm glad to share my contact information with you. I can do a mapping review of your property, and kind of look of what's going on in the scope of what's going on around your property, if there is any. I'm not
Yeah.
we aren't sure if it's.
Well, I wouldn't have gotten a notice, would I, if it didn't?
Actually, we do provide notices to everyone along the right-of-way, but also in about a 0.5 extra of past the right-of-way. So it's not just people that are like experiencing work on their property, but it's also people that are going to see trucks that are going to be passing by their houses on like a basis. So we don't just provide just to, people that are working directly on their property, but, it might be in the distance of your property.
Would you be putting in more than one work pad?
I'm not sure on your location. I'm just not sure.
How large is the work pad?
The work pads vary based on the size of the structure and the work that's going to be done. So I guess my question is, do you have power lines on your property now?
Not on my property, no, but besides it's condominiums.
Sure.
There are condominiums there, and it's abuts the condominiums.
Gotcha. So it might be in relation of where the easement is on it sounds like a neighbor's property are these condominiums, and you are a close abutter to the situation. So we would distribute notifications out to past that, main condominium, but even the neighbors surrounding.
Well, you can't give an idea of how large these work pads going to be?
I can speak on the work pads. I'm just, there'll only be work pads within the existing transmission line right of way. So I don't want to cause you to be alarmed to be concerned that a work pad's going to be installed someplace that's not within the existing transmission line corridor.
What is the work pad going to be made of?
It depends on the location. So some of the work pads will be matting, they're like wooden timber mats that they'll place down. They're usually use those if there's work proposed in agricultural lands, residential lawns, manicured areas, and wetlands or other sensitive resource areas. They'll use those wooden timber mats, and they pull them up after the work is done. But if it's in the right-of-way, in an area where they need to, because of the topography, they need to level the area, they will do some grading, and then they'll place stone. And they may, so underneath basically where the lines are now, there will be additional stone placed for the replacement work.
And how long do you project that this project will take to complete?
I think we're talking probably like close to 5 to 6 years.
5 to 6 years.
But again,
And
we're
will they
spanning
be
6
putting up
towns.
with a lot of noise?
It'll be intermittent, so they won't be working near the condominiums for that entire period of time.
You wouldn't be keeping equipment there permanently, would you, on these work pads?
Not permanently, but there will be equipment staged along the right-of-way at different periods of time during the construction sequences.
Okay, I guess that answers my questions. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
And I'll be glad to provide my contact information, of course.
Good evening, and thank you. My name is Daniel Green. I represent 280 Marston Street. I have a couple of questions. I received the notice, but there's no link or information to the drawings or the sites being affected. I guess my first question is, where can I get a copy of the sites and the drawings and the specs? And are those drawings already stamped and approved?
Abigail, so the links should be available on the town website.
They are, but if you have any difficulty getting to them, I can write down my number for you at the end and I can walk you through how to get there.
Okay. The other question I have is regarding the power line work. Who's going to do the materials testing for the project? The concrete, the compaction, the drilling verification, you've met depth? Also, do you have a contingency for a police detail? Because these trucks sit in the road, and it does limit the right-of-way for people.
I just want to be hesitant on this line because the material, like the first part of your question, affects the wetlands. I don't think we can really talk about the police details. It's, not appropriate to this conversation. So just be aware, any other questions, we need to keep it to the wetlands.
Okay, what's going to be done with the materials that are hauled out? Let's say extra spoils, used power lines, the used steel structures, the used telephone poles. Whose responsibility is to take those out and where they're going to be disposed of?
Okay. That's New England Power Company's responsibility.
Okay, is it disposed off-site?
They do dispose off-site. Some of the materials will be recycled.
Okay.
As allows, if the material is considered potentially hazardous, or, fluid-filled material, they take it to a regulated facility and dispose of it there. As far as the concrete testing, that's usually the contractor will hire a civil engineering firm to be on site, and they will test the concrete, and then they send the results for the curing on the concrete to the New England Power engineer, and they review that to make sure that it meets their standards.
Okay. The other question I have in regarding the work, when you are restoring the area, there's, as the other woman said, that you're using 3-inch minus material. What is going to be replaced in that material, that spot where the mats are taken out or the mats have depressed into the wetlands? And the 3-inch stone, what's going to be used to replace that?
In the wetlands, the matting is, you're correct, the matting is removed. We're typically required to monitor for any kind of compaction, of soil compaction. A wetland scientist typically will go out and make observations to make sure that it's still functioning as a wetland and the hydrology has not been affected by the placement of the temporary construction mats. I'll know more when we have our review by the DEP for the 401, but that historically has been a requirement that they've made of us, that, we report and document post mat removal in wetlands that it's restored and it meets all three criteria for wetlands, so hydrology, vegetation, and soil.
Hey, the other question I have too is around work areas, what do you have for runoff protection? Wattle, silt fence, and do you have a contingency to take care of that if there is a leak that happens to get beyond that barrier?
Yeah, I spoke earlier about we have to file for, under EPA, under the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, construction general permit for stormwater runoff. And part of that does require that a third-party inspector, so that would be my company, BSC Group. I don't work for the utility company. We would go out there on a weekly basis and do an inspection of all the sediment controls. We don't dictate the type of sediment controls that the contractor uses. New England Power has a BMP manual that basically outlines their approved sediment controls that can be placed on their projects, and they range from silt fence, compost filter sock. Compost filter sock is a very common practice that they're installing now. Staked straw bales, not hay bales, because hay bales tend to have weed seed in them, and straw wattles. Sometimes they're more appropriate, on flatter surfaces, or not as robust as, say, like a compost filter sock or a silt fence product, but all those are approved BMPs, and we also submitted those in our notice of intent. So you can, when you meet with Abigail, and she could probably show you that that file.
Yeah, as discussed earlier, the agent will be inspecting all of those on an ongoing basis.
Okay. How about, it does and does not relate to environmental, town roads that go into these sites? Some of these roads are not designed, they don't have the easel value to handle that large equipment. And if those roads are damaged, who pays for the repair of those roads?
We can't speak to that.
Yeah, I don't think that's appropriate for this conversation. I'm sorry, it's a legitimate question, but this is the Conservation Commission.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? I just ask that you introduce yourself again.
Ed Johnson, McNeil Way, 44 McNeil Way. Have they submitted any dewatering plan? Because they're going to have to do dewatering there. The water table's 3-4 feet.
Have you submitted any?
What we included with our notice of intent is a narrative, a description on best practices for dewatering. And then in that BMP manual I mentioned to the last gentleman, we do have approved, devices that New England Power allows their contractors to use for dewatering practices. Dewatering discharge, as a general rule, it never could be discharged directly into a wetland. We require that the contractor set up an approved BMP, and that could be a dewatering bag, a filter bag that gets pumped, put in a vegetated upland location, and they'll pump it up to that bag. Another approach sometimes that's used is they'll set up a dewatering basin, and that's usually a straw bale staked basin they'll create, and then they'll line that with the geotextile fabric, which is the filter medium, and they'll pour the dewatering water directly into that to allow it to filter out any fine silts and sediments, and then it'll recharge into an upland area. Another option that a contractor may use is to use a vacuum truck and or a frac tank, and those two in conjunction. And then when they do those, they either will bring it to the settling basin with the vac truck, or they will take it off-site and bring it to an approved facility, such as a soil and gravel facility that does accept water, and they'll discharge it there.
So I guess back to so you submitted something to them on the dewatering plan?
Yes.
Your methods? And
yes, sir.
And you'll be checking, who checks on that to see if they're dewatering and disposing of the water properly?
If they have to dewater,
They have to dewater every hole out there because the water table is real high.
When they do encounter groundwater that fills up the hole, they do need to dewater, especially if they're putting in a concrete foundation. If they're doing a direct embed structure, that's not always the case, because sometimes they can just place a structure in the open hole with the standing groundwater and then backfill it with crushed stone. But when they're dealing with concrete, they can do something called a tremie pour, which is they'll pump it while they're pouring concrete. So because the concrete is obviously more dense than the water will rise up, and then they'll use a vac truck and they'll kind of siphon the water off with the vac truck as the concrete's being poured. Those are circumstances when that water is going to be trucked either to an approved upland location into a basin or brought to a receiving facility for discharge there.
Do you expect to do dewatering at every replacement site?
No. It only will happen, it's going to happen in the wetland complexes.
Yeah.
And if they do hit groundwater, if there is, groundwater, in an area adjacent to a wetland, but if it's a high and dry area, I mean, they typically go down 20, 40 feet. If they don't hit groundwater, then they don't need to dewater.
All right. I guess I'm just, my line of thinking is, what would be an appropriate, if there's unexpected dewatering, there's going to be areas that you almost guaranteed are going to have to be dewatered. Mm-hmm. There might be other places where you didn't expect it, but it will have to happen. Mm-hmm. Can we have some type of condition that for those instances, you warn the commission about additional dewatering? Are you okay with that?
Yes, so we don't necessarily prescribe where we think that, in our application, we don't say, we know where the dewatering is going to happen. I mean, there's obvious cases where we're going to hit groundwater, especially if it's at the surface, like in a wetland. Basically, we require contractors to have materials on site in the event that they do need to dewater. Also, the way the sequence of construction works, they're drilling, they know that they know that they're hitting groundwater at that point, and the concrete doesn't happen instantaneously. They prep the hole, then they have to put the rebar cage in, and there's a whole prep session, and then they have to, survey the level, make sure things are level, and there's a whole process that happens before the concrete is even brought onto the site. Mm-hmm. So at that point, they would need to make sure that they have their setup, their dewatering setup, reviewed and approved by the monitor before they bring the concrete trucks in.
You're going to be submitting weekly reports to some people, monthly reports to us. Can you include dewatering anytime you have to dewater in those reports to us?
Yes. That's a reasonable condition.
They know what sites need to be dewatered. They did borings for months. They bored 12 feet in every location. So they know where the water table is, and they know the type of soils. And what I don't want to happen in my yard is what happened on Main Street. They were there for, everybody knows, 2 or 3 months, maybe even longer, trying to get those poles set. I mean, they're large ones. I hope I don't get those, but that's what I don't want to happen in my yard. I don't want them to be dewatering for 2 months to put in a pole. The other thing I have is, are they required to, a rare species report? Do they have to supply that to you?
In here, I don't believe so. We've only had rare species come up once in my memory, and it was for a totally separate area. Abigail, can you speak to that?
I don't believe so. There is very limited rare species habitat in Tewksbury, and it's all in one kind of area. It's certainly something that I can look up right now.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We review for that. We did submit a checklist to Natural Heritage for this project, but that's for areas outside of Tewksbury. So this right-of-way does not cross any Natural Heritage habitat polygons that would require us to seek approval from that agency, Department of Fish and Wildlife. But they are reviewing the project as a whole because we do have work in habitat in other towns. So it is under review with Department of Fish.
So you will be submitting it to them, is that?
For the project itself, yes, the state Department of Fish and Game is reviewing the project, but not for work associated with Tewksbury.
And did I hear you say that the state is going to monitor the stormwater runoff?
No, BSC Environmental Compliance Monitor on behalf of, we'll be out there as the consultant environmental inspector. The state always has the right to enter the property at any time. Any permitting agency has the right to enter the property to do an inspection.
But you said you're going to give them something saying concerning the stormwater?
DEP regulates the wetland matting, so we'll need to submit any information they request from us as far as wetland restoration. The DEP regulates only the wetlands under the 401. Stormwater is regulated under the EPA, so the federal agency.
But they're not going to be involved?
The EPA always has a right to enter an active construction project and do their own inspection as
But they're
a,
not aware of this project now?
not yet. We typically file our notice of intent with the EPA about a month before construction starts. They have a 2-week review period of our application and our stormwater pollution prevention plan. And then if they approve our plan, we get a permit number, and then we have to post a sign at a public roadway to document that we've gone through that review process with EPA.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right. This is a public hearing. If there's anybody else in the public who would like to make a comment, I ask that you do it now. I will also ask the commission, anybody on the commission have any additional questions or anything you want to bring up?
I have none.
No.
Good.
All right. If that's the case, then I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. And I will entertain a motion to approve the notice of intent and land disturbance permit as discussed at this meeting.
I'll second that. I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we have any admin reports or anything else? Can you just, hold on 1 second.
Sorry.
Um,
No, not at this time.
Not at this time. All right. If that's the case, next meeting is 3/18/2026. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well.